Hope all of you are having a spooky, safe October. It's All Hallows Eve, and now, my lovely, beautiful friends, the ghosts are upon us, the ghouls are upon us, and it's important for us to keep our heads on a swivel. Now, this is a video from Roanoke Tales, and I think it's only fair that we do talk about this because what the soldiers saw was nightmarish. What are they talking about? Is it werewolves? Well, we're going to find out because you got to be careful out there. The ghouls and goblins are going to be walking around the earth. The ghost ghouls and goblins and all those that go bump in the night. The barriers are down, you see. And what would be really cool is if you like, comment, share, and subscribe and hit that ring bell notification for Americans Learn. And please do that for the original content creator too, because unfortunately, YouTube's acting weird. You know, on one of our other channels for Chicago Reacts, I actually did a live stream about Angron, Just going to say it, and nobody, and we have over 100,000 plus subscribers, no one was notified except for like 13 people. What the heck? Usually, what I remember back in the day for the old school YouTube rules is, before the censorship, and that is, when someone uploaded content and got a ring, or went live, people were notified. Yes, all notifications can get annoying, but double check you're still subscribed. Do that as a favor for me, and take good care, and do that for all your favorite content creators. But now, since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's enjoy this video in 3, a 2, and an uno, shall we?
Strange things have always been whispered about in small German towns. Old forests, lonely shrines.
Germania! I'll curse that name till the day I die! Like any true Roman should.
And quiet villages all seem to hide stories that don't fade with time. These are tales of curses, shadows in the dark, creatures that should not exist, ex-wives who drink too much beer. Anyway, maybe not that far. One of the most unsettling of these stories connects ancient folklore with a modern military encounter. At its heart is the old legend of a curse, one that spoke of a beast, half man, half wolf, roaming when the light of the moon was full. But did trained American soldiers with all their weapons and discipline really come face to face with such a creature? Or was it something else? Today, we'll talk about the Moorbach monster and explore the creepy mystery behind it.
Ew. I like how the alien is the last one there to see anything. It's like, hold on, we're going to rewind it again. And the alien's like, what? Man, I shouldn't have smoked all that space weed.
Germany has a long history of stories just like Moorbach. Centuries before the Moorbach sighting in 1582.
Germania.
The town of Bedburg faced its own nightmare. A man named Peter Stube confessed to killing younglings, because I'm not even 2 minutes into this, which means YouTube would absolutely nuke the monetization from orbit, and also he took out women in the countryside. He claimed he could turn into a wolf whenever he wore a special belt, a gift, he said, from the devil himself. Stube admitted to terrible crimes, but his punishment was even more brutal. The authorities executed him in front of the townspeople, dismembering his body before burning what remained. You know what, though? Call me barbaric. But when you do stuff to younglings, yeah, that should happen to you. Because really it serves as a warning to anybody else who may be screwing around with the same thing. Like, maybe I really want to go and take out this offspring here, or maybe take out some women over there. It's like, oh, wait a minute, but I remember that one guy who got completely dismembered in front of the townspeople. Maybe I won't.
Yeah, exactly.
Just saying. It works. It's sort of like blood eagling people who find themselves in love with, people who aren't of age. Anyways, then in the early 1800s, another story would emerge. A Napoleonic soldier named Thomas Schweitzer returned home through the Rhineland after a failed march on Moscow. He was traveling with Russian deserters, starving and broken. They entered a farmhouse near Moorbach, killing the family inside. But as the last victim, a woman, lay dying, she spoke a curse. She declared that Schweitzer would never again live as a man, but as a beast, doomed to transform under the full moon. The story says her curse took hold. Schweitzer changed into something savage. He slaughtered the livestock and roamed the forest, leaving fear wherever he passed. Some have even claimed that he forced himself upon women, passing the curse to his children. The people of the region finally tracked him down and then killed him, but they were not content to just leave the matter at that. Over the place where he died, they actually built a stone shrine. The villagers believed the shrine had to stay lit at all times. If the candles inside ever burned out, the curse would return. For generations, the people of Morbach kept the fire alive. And for generations, the beast remained only a story. Until the summer night, when American soldiers found the shrine and left its candles dark. The year was 1988. The Cold War, a long shadow that stretched across the world for decades, seemed like it was finally coming to an end.
Nothing ever ends. It only changes and adapts.
In West Germany, American soldiers worked at Hahn Air Force Base, keeping watch over the skies with their fighter jets. During the day, their job was serious, but at night, discipline often slipped away, as it does with most soldiers. After soldiers are off duty, man, these guys are crazy. Anyways, rumors spread that peace was near. Gorbachev, the leader of the Soviet Union, was making reforms. People even whispered that for the first time in years, both the United States and the USSR might compete together at the Olympic Games. Hope was in the air, and with it came careless celebration. The soldiers began drinking more, laughing louder, and testing the limits of their commander's patience, which, to be honest with you, is pretty standard. Patrols had to escort drunken men back to their base more often than anyone actually liked. And then one night, something happened that no one would expect. A bus full of rowdy airmen was heading back to a base after a long evening. Along the way, they begged the driver to stop so that they could relieve themselves. The bus pulled over near the quiet village of Vinogradov, and then some of the soldiers stumbled into the trees, laughing and shouting as they went. Not far from candles had burned out, leaving the monument cold and dark. The Americans, unaware of its meaning, mocked the strange little structure and then walked away without a second thought. But the shrine was no ordinary stone. According to local folklore, its flame was meant to stay lit. The candlelight was a guard, a warning, like a barrier that kept an ancient curse locked away. As long as the fire burned, the land remained safe. That night, the flame went out. And with it, the soldiers may have untied something far beyond their understanding. Just after midnight, at around 12:15 a.m., the calm of the base was then broken. From the guard room came a call. A strange disturbance had been heard in the woods beyond the fence. A patrol had reported something chilling, shrill screams echoing from the trees, followed by the sound of heavy...
Probably it was somebody screwing around, or they were really drunk and high, or they, in turn, confused natural sounds, and because of their inebriated mind, their brains went primeval and got afraid.
Movement in the undergrowth. 2 teams of soldiers were sent out to investigate. Their flashlights cut through the darkness as they moved carefully into the forest. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, some would say, except for the crunch of boots on leaves. Then, in a small clearing, they stopped. What they saw froze them in place. Lying on the ground were the bodies of 3 deer. Their throats had been torn wide open, their bellies ripped apart. Entrails and pools of blood covered the grass. It looked less like hunting and more like savage destruction. The soldiers leaned closer. Their bodies showed signs of something or someone had been feeding on them. The way the organs were torn, the way the grass was trampled as if something large had crouched there feasting, left the men, predictably, a little bit uneasy. I'd probably be uneasy too. At first, the explanation seemed simple. Perhaps wild boars, maybe a pack of feral dogs. But even as they spoke those words, true doubt remained. The damage looked different, more like violent and very deliberate. The soldiers phoned the Forestry Commission, asking them to collect the carcasses in the morning. Then, trying to steady their...
No, I'd rather not collect those carcasses because you don't know what's out there. And if it's out there still looking around, you better be afraid.
Nerves, they began to walk back towards the base. But deep in the forest, the night was not done with them yet. Realistically, that night should have ended quietly. The patrols were tired, ready to hand in their reports about the deer and then return to base. But then something shifted in the darkness. From deep inside the woods came a low growl, so deep it rattled in their chests. The men would freeze. Before they could react, the bushes exploded open. A huge shadow lunged out with a guttural roar that did not sound like any animal that they knew. Panic would break out, flashlights swung wildly, boots pounded on the ground. The airmen scattered, running as if chased by an absolute nightmare, because they were. And when they finally reached safety, gasping for air, some shouted the only explanation that made any sense in the moment: a bear. But the commanding officer was quick to shut that down. Bears had been gone from Germany for over 100 years. Whatever they had seen was not a bear. The following day, command then decided to...
Then what could it have been? Some crazy nutcase, probably.
To send in a dog team. A seasoned handler known as Julie brought her German Shepherd forward. The dog sniffed the edge of the woods, then stopped. its ears went flat, and its body trembled. Instead of tracking in, the shepherd yanked hard on the leash, pulling Jolie backward towards the base. When she tried again, the dog resisted even more, whining in fear. Back inside the compound, it bolted to its kennel and then refused to come out. Veteran handlers whispered to each other this was not normal. Dogs trained for war did not spook easily. Something in the woods was more than an animal. It was something the dog knew it could not face. And I mean, even with its best friend being man, I don't know, sometimes, like, it's like, ugh. Like, I don't know. It's sort of like when you're with your friend and in a bar fight or something, and you know your friend's gonna get his ass kicked. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So the quiet did not last. Just after midnight, the sharp wail of base sirens tore through the night. Patrols reported something moving near the munitions locker, a place guarded with the highest security. Floodlights snapped on. Armed soldiers spread out, scanning the shadows. That's when they saw it. A figure. Tall, dark, and handsome. No, just tall, dark, moving in ways that didn't look human. The chase would begin from here. For nearly 20 minutes, soldiers sprinted across the compound, shouting commands, trying to corner the intruder. But the figure was always faster. It darted down alleyways, slipped through fences, and then impossibly vanished into dead ends where really no exits existed. Every time the men thought they had it trapped, it was suddenly behind them, or just gone completely. Fear spread quickly. Soldiers called for the dog unit, hoping the shepherd would flush the thing out. But when the kennel doors opened, not a single dog would emerge. They cowered inside, growling low, eyes fixed on the woods beyond the fence. The air on the base would grow heavy. Men who had trained for war, men who, used discipline and were used to danger, now stood absolutely shaken. Something was walking amongst them. Something that did not move like a man and could not be hunted like an animal. The base was ordered into darkness. Floodlights were switched off, and soldiers were given night vision goggles. Step by step, they spread out in a wide line, moving forward together. The plan was fairly simple. Push the intruder towards the fence and then corner it. For a while, there was only the steady sound of boots on gravel and the low rustle of wind in the trees. Then one sergeant, scanning ahead through the green glow of his goggles, stopped.
Now, the thing is, you would think they used the Predator method. What's the Predator method? Well, remember in the first movie Predator, when Jesse the Body Ventura's character dies, the one who said that chewing dip would make you into a sexual tyrannosaurus. Remember that scene where he dies and his friend picks up the minigun and starts shooting into the wilderness, and then Arnold and his whole team starts shooting into the wilderness? That's what you got to do. That's one of those occasions where it's okay to shoot into the wilderness. No, actually, according to military rules of engagement, know your target and what lies beyond.
Saw it. A large wolf-like figure was standing upright, balanced on its hind legs. It did not move, and it only watched him. For several seconds, the two remained still, one staring at the other. Then the figure lifted its head and released a long, sharp howl that carried through the night. Soldiers nearby turned towards the sound, weapons raised, but before they could react, the figure stepped back and was gone into the trees. When they searched the spot, there was no trace, no tracks, no damage, nothing to explain what they had just witnessed. The line of soldiers slowly pulled back, unsettled, and the night had given them absolutely no answers, only deeper questions, which is standard for the woods at night. You get left with our questions, never any answers. So when daylight returned, investigators moved through the woods. They found broken branches and trampled grass, signs that something large had passed through in the night. Near the clearing, the carcasses of deer were examined again, and a forest ranger confirmed that the injuries looked like a work of a predator, similar to a wolf. But there was a problem. Wolves usually killed in a clean and efficient way. They went for the hindquarters, caused little blood loss, and then dragged their prey away. What lay before the soldiers was different. These animals had been left torn open, their throats ripped out, and their insides scattered about. The ranger quietly admitted that the attack seemed unnaturally savage. The official paperwork told a different story. Reports were sanitized. No mentions of strange figures, no mention of anything walking upright. The files only noted a patrol disturbed by noises in the forest. And to rule out excuses, every soldier was tested for alcohol and drugs. And the results came back negative, which...
Okay, so either they really came together with a coordinated lie, or they really dealt with a werewolf.
That is the hardest part to believe. Anyway, security footage offered no answers either. Cameras caught only groups of soldiers running in confusion, weapons drawn, but no intruder appeared on screen. And yet, whispers began to spread. Some soldiers remembered the small stone shrine and the burned out candles that they had mocked just days earlier. Local villagers quietly said the shrine was built to hold back a curse. Now they warned that the curse had been disturbed. Rumors began to grow. What the soldiers had faced was no ordinary animal. It was the return of an old story, one that many in the region had tried to forget. The night at Han Air Base left behind no clear answers. What the soldiers saw or thought they saw has been debated ever since, and like many strange stories, the explanations split into very different paths. The first idea is fairly simple. It was just a predator. Perhaps an exotic animal escaped from a private collection. Maybe a wolf had wandered into the region, or even stranger, maybe a hybrid. At first, the deer carcasses did seem to suggest a natural attack, but there were problems with this explanation. Wolves had not lived in Germany for many years. Boars were fairly common, but they did not kill in such a way that they would, rip open animals like this. Wild dogs might scavenge, but they would not leap fences, chase soldiers, and then disappear into dead ends without leaving any tracks. The details did not quite match any known predator. Mass hysteria and psychological stress could actually maybe explain this, and this is kind of a more human take on it. The Cold War was a time of constant fear. Young men were sent far from their homes, told to stay alert at all times, and warned that enemies could strike at any moment. These soldiers lived with long nights, endless drills, and the heavy weight of duty. They were tired, homesick, and often fairly restless. For many, Germany felt cold and foreign, which... Have you ever talked to a German before? German people are cool. My former father-in-law was German, but that guy was hilarious. The things that you would say. Anyways, the woods around Moorbach were dark and unfamiliar, filled with these strange noises that could unsettle even the bravest guard. On the night that the soldiers had been relaxing, evidently, some had also been drinking. They were laughing and passing the time in the quiet of the base, but fear can slip into a place quite quickly. It takes only a spark, a sudden noise, a strange shadow, a cry of an alarm, and then the mood can shift from calm to panic in seconds. When one soldier claimed he saw something in the trees, everyone's attention snapped. The joking stopped. They stared into the darkness, hearts beating faster. In that moment, the woods themselves seemed alive. Every movement became suspicious. A branch swaying in the wind looked like a figure. A deer running through the brush sounded like a predator. Even the distant cry of an owl.
Hey, look, at night, man, your mind can go into a billion different directions, of course, because that's when we're heightened and aware, You don't know what's out there staring at you. And those that hunt at night, their eyesight and hearing is better. And humans, while we are the apex creature in charge, we're known for our technology, tool use, and teamwork. As for being apex alpha gigachad predators, yes, we are, but there are things that could take us down.
Could feel like a warning. Psychologists call this kind of reaction mass hysteria. It happens when a group of people feed off one another's fear until they all believe the same thing. One man's frightened imagination becomes shared by many. Panic spreads like fire, and soon the entire group feels certain that they are facing something dangerous, even if nothing is truly there. The darkness would make it worse. At night, the human mind struggles to make sense of shapes and movements. Shadows stretch and bend into forms that don't exist. A flicker of light can look like a pair of glowing eyes. In such conditions, fear can easily turn illusions into monsters. The dogs, too, would play a role. Animals are highly sensitive to their handlers' emotions. If the soldiers' voices shook, if their hands trembled, if the dogs felt it, they may have pulled back, not because of a creature in the woods, but because they sensed the rising tension of the men holding their leashes.
Yeah, animals can sense things. If a dog is afraid and it feels that the human is afraid, then yeah, it's going to mimic that. Makes sense.
To the soldiers, though, this hesitation seemed like confirmation. If even trained dogs refused to go forward, then surely something unnatural was waiting in the dark. Stress was already heavy on those men. The Cold War was not just about armies and weapons, it was about the constant feeling that danger was always near. Soldiers were trained to suspect spies, saboteurs, and sudden attacks. Their nerves were always on edge. Add alcohol to the mix, and their ability to judge clearly would drop even further. Excitement and fear became stronger. Imagination became harder to control. All of this fits neatly in the way that stories were then later told. The official military report avoided strange details. It did not speak of monsters or curses. Instead, it described confusion, fear, and unidentified movement in the woods. If the truth was mass panic, the commanders would have probably wanted to hide it. Admitting that dozens of armed men trained to basically deal with this lost their composure over local folklore would have been embarrassing for the military. And if we know anything...
And the Soviets don't like that. And the Soviets would capitalize that. In Soviet Russia, Russians hunt where? Actually, you know what? I've seen how they treat polar bears. My God, or bears in general. Russia would be like, just a big bear. Oh, where no different.
Look at, was it Bulgaria, the Sarashina hole? The military does not want to be embarrassed. In this view, the Morbach monster was really never a beast at all. It was a shadow of stress, loneliness, and fear. The men were not attacked by a creature, but by their own imagination. And once that imagination spread through the group, it became unstoppable. The soldiers believed that they had seen something, and so the legend would grow. But perhaps what they really faced was not a werewolf, not a predator, but the powerful ability of the human mind to create fear out of the darkness. The other is just pretty standard. It's supernatural. Well, I mean, people believe that the answer does lie, possibly in the old stories. They say the shrine was not just a symbol, but a literal warning. When the candles went dark, the curse was set free once more, which, way to go, townspeople, for letting that go out. How would
Yeah, so it wasn't the soldiers' fault, but okay.
the soldiers know to, go and light those things? So the soldier's description of a huge wolf-like creature standing on two legs matches the legend of Thomas Schweitzer, the cursed soldier of the Napoleonic Wars. The violent mutilation of the deer, the strange speed of the intruder, and the way the dogs cowered in fear, all of it seemed to echo the old tale. To believers, this was not mass panic. It was the return of the monster of Morbach. Thomas Schweitzer, some researchers believe that he himself may have actually been real. Perhaps he was not a monster of the full moon, but a soldier turned brigand, guilty of crimes so brutal that the people of Morbach remembered him as something inhuman. Over time, their fear reshaped him into a legend, and in their eyes, Schweitzer did not just die, he became a curse. And finally, there's the possibility of this was all just a hoax. Some think it could have been a prank by soldiers or even locals who wanted to keep the legend alive. The lack of evidence feeds this theory. No photos, no bodies, no physical proof, just stories, reports, and fear. The military's choice to edit out any mention of a werewolf only added to this fuel. Was it a cover-up of the supernatural truth or just an attempt to hide a night of confusion? To this day, really, no one knows how to really explain what happened under the dark trees of Morbach. But what could have happened? When we peel back the layers of this mystery, the most plausible explanation suggests a blend of folklore and fear. The soldiers clearly experienced something. Reports were consistent, dogs refused to advance, and the mutilated deer were real. Perhaps it was a predator, an intruder, or even just a figure moving in the dark. But when combined with the soldiers' own tension, their isolation, and the old story of the shrine, that something became larger than life. Folklore gave it shape. Panic gave it power, and from those two forces came the modern tale of the monster of Morbach. But the truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Part real, part legend, part memory. The incident of Morbach remains one of the most enduring supernatural encounters of the Cold War era. A story where past sins seem to echo into the present and where soldiers of the most powerful air force in the world found themselves humbled not by enemy armies, but by a mystery in the dark. So as per usual, I'd like to break in here because people say they do enjoy this part because it's not just me being like, and then it was creepy. Now, if your trash can is tipped over in Appalachia, then that means you should run or some stupid crap like that. It also just means some raccoons got into your trash. But the point is, so if we take werewolf legends in general, these are like all over the place, right? Sort of like Bigfoot. In North America anyways, it's all over the place. There's always misidentification of things that really fuels weird, fuels human skepticism, but also fuels human kind of perception, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, much like the Michigan Dogman, which I'm supposed to go hunt in I think a year and a half at this point, if this channel hits 1 million, we're not on track for that, but we'll see what happens. And also, I don't know, you guys have basically sounded off in the comments that you want me to kind of go to these places and take a look at them, and I'm not really sure, but I might just go try to fight the Michigan Dogman anyways, who knows. But the point is that if you take a look at this entire situation, there's a lot of things that don't really necessarily relate to one another, right? Finding the deer carcasses, yes.
Okay. It really could have been anything, but I'm gonna say mass hysteria. Mass hysteria is what caused those troopers to go crazy. Unless, hey, to my viewing audience, do you have a family member or relative, or were you one of those soldiers at that German base, a U.S. soldier? What'd you see? Now that time has passed on, don't hold anything back. Give us your story. Let us know. An inquiring mind wants to know, so that perhaps maybe we can get to the bottom of this mystery once and for all.
That would be creepy, but have you ever seen not just wolves, but dogs, wild dogs tear apart an animal? It's pretty brutal. It's not unnaturally savage. It's just, yeah, they eviscerate things, and they may not necessarily know how to effectively hunt like wolves hunt. And so they just kind of tear something apart to get it to die so that they can eat it. To me, especially three animals who are prey being torn apart doesn't necessarily mean that it was some supernatural beast that was just like going absolutely goblin mode on them. It could have just been a pack of wild dogs. That does happen. And then it's kind of one of these things where people don't really understand what happens after an initial attack of something. So like if you take people who end up in the wilderness, right? And then they drop dead of something, they can get picked over by scavengers, and sometimes heads will be stolen as well. So I think it was like the Valley of Headless Men or whatever in Canada. A lot of that was based on the fact that the skeletons afterwards, they couldn't find the heads. And they're like, oh my God, what happened? Somebody chopped off their... No, probably not. See, the problem is that when you, I guess, decompose enough, your head kind of falls off, right? Because of scavengers, and they kind of like just pull that away and take it somewhere else. The same thing happens with these deer, right? The initial thing that took them out may have clean killed them, and then ate what it ate, and then they left. And then now you have all the scavengers showing up who smelled it, which could even still be a pack of wild dogs who are just going after what's left. So to me, it seems like that could be unrelated. Now, as for the soldiers actually finding something but never actually finding it, again, that just comes down to mass hysteria. Humans are social creatures, and we do, for real, we can see things that aren't actually there simply because somebody else says they saw it there. This is how legends persist. This is how it's always been. And, here's the thing. We're talking about this from the American soldier's perspective right now.
Case in point, let's also look at the fact how people are saying UFOs and aliens are real. Well, I mean, there's a lot of strange footage coming out there now, and never has there been a point in time where people are saying like, yeah, we're not alone in the universe.
Now, what they saw, and for some, that's going to be like, well, this confirms it, right? That's going to continue on the legend. Well, the Germans are no different. They're still human too. So their stories of what they saw back in the day are a similar thing. It's just their stories continuing on their side. So to me, it's like, does this actually prove that they saw something, or is it something weird? I think it's important to remember soldiers are usually pretty young. Like, especially just starting out, they're like 18 to like 22. And you got to remember, drinking, your frontal lobe isn't developed yet. You're scared. You're much more socially influenced. All of these things kind of create a powder keg of like, what did you see out there, and did you really even see it? Like, if your friends are scared because they allegedly saw something, but really what they saw is a tree moving in the distance, it was just dark, and then they hear from another group that they, well, we cornered something, but we don't know where it went. It's just, this stuff can get out of control really easily. And then you've got the higher ups coming in being like, who are like in their 40s and 50s, who are like, that's not how that happened.
Man, and they're probably like, man, you goddamn boots getting all crazy. Stupid morons, probably yelling at them.
Like, no, that's ridiculous. Let's write down the report as it actually was, which is, we thought there was something here. Nobody was able to identify anything. It was probably just an animal that got past the fence. It's that type of stuff. You can, this is sort of like why they don't, like, when you take into account eyewitness accounts, usually that information isn't really, I don't know if it's not admissible, but it's not as reliable as it could be, because the human brain will actually make things up. It is a well-known phenomenon that we do, especially in the absence of information. You can see things that aren't actually there. Like, go out into the woods tonight, alone, right? Walk into your backyard. I don't know, if you're not anywhere near woods and you're just near fields, just go out. Just look into the darkness and start trying to freak yourself out by imagining you see something, right? You'll probably end up seeing something. That is human nature. The corn will move weird. A tree branch will...
Or you'll see something swaying or moving around in the background.
Will snap in the distance, confirming that there's something there. You can actually freak yourself out doing this all the time. Now imagine you're with a group of people, you get freaked out, they get freaked out too, and now you guys are just feeding off each other. That is more than likely what happened here. Now, I'm not saying as humans we know everything there is to know out there in the distance of what could possibly be lurking and all that. I mean, we just recently, not recently, but within the last couple of years, there's like, I mentioned this on my Roanoke Gaming channel, which is actually, believe it or not, that's my main channel. Like, this channel is just a side project. If you found this channel organically, that's pretty cool. But for probably most people here, they come from Roanoke Gaming. Video over covering Anaconda. There are uncontacted tribes in South America who don't know anything about the world, right? They don't know how advanced our technology is because they've never been contacted. They just think, oh, okay, well, this is how we've always lived life. That has got to be crazy. But also, we just found a species who is completely translucent, whose organs can be seen through their body. So it's just stuff like that. It's a new species. We don't know everything there is to know about what lurks in the woods. Now, again, there are many areas of untouched, like forests, I guess, in Europe. There are areas that, haven't really been explored too much, and even if Europe's been around that long. But have you ever seen European forests? They're creepy. I don't know what's up with their trees over there, but it is kind of creepy over there. So I just feel like, to me, you've got
Those are the ghosts of saddened Romans knowing that the timeline has failed, and their spirits are stuck in the haunted forests of Germania.
foreigners in a country that aren't used to the area. They're not used to the animals. They're not used to the sounds. They're not used to the trees. They're not used to really anything. They're younger. They're drinking. They're on like that constant, I guess, cortisol drip because they have to always be ready in case something the Russians are doing. It was all of that comes together to freak them out even more than they would have normally been freaked out by something that they think is on the base. To me, this one doesn't sound like a werewolf. This one sounds like complete hysteria, which, you want to really look at what were they doing prior? Were there tons of drills? Was anybody sleep deprived? Was it like, man, we really got our butt kicked this week. It's a Friday night. Let's go drink. And then they come back and then now they're dealing with this. It's all of those things put together, right? So to me, that's just what it looks like. Could it have been a werewolf? I mean, we need to find actual evidence of the werewolf. Who knows? Maybe I'll get taken out by the Michigan Dog Man and it'll be like, wow, I guess the Michigan Dog Man does exist. But apart from that, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it up to you. What do you guys think? Do you think this is actually a werewolf, or do you think it was probably just a bunch of drunken younger soldiers, or even sober ones who are just tired, dealing with the threat of nuclear annihilation? Could be anything. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, then please leave a like as it helps get the video out there. And subscribing is a great way to stay up to date on when I post. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, Roanoke Gaming link, I guess, in the description. But speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. At the Literal Wendigo tier, we have Grayson West, Monkey Man, Strungle, and Invictus Echo. Thank you guys for your awesome continued support. At the Eyewitness to the Event tier, we have Beaver Malaga, Eddie the Yeti, Dragon Master Knight, and Hope Blighton. Thank you guys as well. At the first-hand accounts tier, we have the Soggy Anglerfish, and at the second-hand accounts tier, we have Troy, Fred Rush, Stutz, Bianca, and Pouches. And to the rest of my patrons, I do appreciate y'all's support as well. It goes a long way towards helping out, so thank you. But all right, that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Good stuff. All right. Good stuff indeed. Oh, gotta get down that Hassan stuff. Ay. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this. All right. What did those soldiers see? What did they do? What happened? They probably got drunk, got stupid. So now we have werewolves, ghost werewolves. We have curses, a Napoleonic soldier. I mean, come on. Let's go ahead and talk about this. All right. First of all, probably people's imaginations went wild, okay? And, everyone gets drunk, everyone gets stupid, they get afraid, and then, of course, there's this wave of fear. And mass hysteria, it is like a drug. We've all seen the stories of people all going crazy, reacting to things, and in turn, letting their better judgment get shrinked and cast aside because of the primeval fear that the masses are fearing. Okay, so it could happen to anybody in any field. Put in an extraordinary situation, and once you add an alcohol into the mix, well, what could go wrong? So here's what I think. They didn't see no werewolf. It was probably just maybe some sort of wolf, maybe that did escape from a private handler. Everyone's better judgment getting the better of them, or their worst impulsive fears getting the better of their better judgment, and in turn going crazy. However, I will open up the comment section to you, the viewing audience. If you know a relative or a person, or if you're maybe related to the people that were on that base of said story taking place, let me know. Type your thoughts in the comment section below. Give us your feedback. What really happened there?